Excited to welcome Hope College head coach Brian Morehouse and his assistant coach Courtney Kust to the basketball podcast. Morehouse is ranked among Division III's elite active coaches by winning percentage, winning 87.4% of his 658 games with 17 Michigan Intercollegiate Athletic Association championships. His teams have also made 20 NCAA Division III tournament appearances. Hope finished the 2021-22 year with a record of 31-1, an MIAA regular season and tournament championship, and the NCAA Division III national championship. The national championship ends a 3-year stretch that saw the Flying Dutch post a record of 76-1. It's the third national title for the program and the second for head coach Brian Morehouse. A former Hope player, Kust, has been a member of the Hope College women's basketball coaching staff since the 2014-15 season. Kust was named a member of the Women's Basketball Coach Association 30 under 30 class, a distinction that recognizes 30 up-and-coming women's basketball coaches aged 30 and under at all levels of the game. Brian and Courtney, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. And Brian, let's maybe start with you. I mean, the incredible success and the consistency of success and, that 3-year run you're on, obviously, COVID aside, just remarkable. But why is Courtney here?
Things don't really run in our program without Kust. She, a lot within our basketball program. I'm a big football guy, not so much as a fan, but as a systems. Like I'm fascinated by coaches that are in football and how they structure, how they organize, how they're so efficient, how they're so detail oriented. And a while ago, I just made the decision that we would structure our staff like a football team. And so I would be the head coach, but I would be like in sync so closely with my offensive coordinator, my defensive coordinator, our special teams coach, our recruiting coordinator. And then we would be able to delegate, but also under the whole umbrella share, right? So I'm not the only person that's running the offense. My defensive coordinator is not the only person. But when we walk into practice, I expect those people to have a plan. We've bounced things off each other. And I think the biggest thing is it's really held me accountable to not pushing things to the side and kind of pushing my own agenda, but like being held accountable. So for example, Courtney runs all of our special team stuff. I think she's super gifted in the culture piece. And so we don't walk into practice without her saying, hey, don't forget that 5 minutes right here that we've got culture before practice, or, hey, we need time for special teams. Like you can't push that off. Like we're going to need this stuff. It just has helped me to be more accountable. And I think it's also really helped me to grow younger coaches and give them opportunities that I don't know that you get a lot of different places where, the last 3 minutes of a game, I think people are probably pretty shocked when I'm not the one running the huddle when it's a baseline out of bounds. I mean, I hand it off to Courtney and she's amazing. So when you have really good people that you work with, you feel really good about delegating and giving them opportunities. And my coaching staff is, I don't deserve how good of a coaching staff I have, but I'm grateful for it. And they've never let me down. They're fantastic.
Well, that humility and trust is obviously incredible on your part, Brian. And, Courtney, the success of the program, your personal success and contributions, there's no doubt there's future possibilities for you in terms of running your own program.
Just incredibly grateful for the opportunity that Coach Mo has given me. I think it's really special when you have the chance to coach at your alma mater and where you played. So I played under him for 4 years, and I think that we really just have a great thing going. I believe in the values of this program. I believe in everything that Coach Mo stands for, and I'm happy to help contribute to that as much as I can, and really just focus on being here and being present and doing the best that we can with the players that we have. And yeah, so I love Hope. I would love to be a head coach one day, but Hope is definitely where I'm at and where I'm focused on staying.
That's great stuff. And, incredible success, as I read in the introduction. And, you guys sent me this graphic, this Wii Mentality. And, beyond obviously having talented players, which is the obvious part of it, and recruiting, this Wii Mentality, I imagine, is one of the reasons for your success. So can someone just give us an overview of what the Wii Mentality is?
I'll start, and then we can let Courtney fill in the blanks. For us, we, which is W period E period, it stands for win everything. And I think for people outside of our program, when they hear us reference it, they're like, yeah, of course you want to win every game. For us, it's a lifestyle. It's a series of daily habits of every interaction that you have, every moment of the day is really a chance to win or lose. Whether it's walking down the hallway and you look across to the other side and you see maybe a gum wrapper on the floor and you think, that's the janitor's job. That's what they get paid for. Or you walk across, you pick it up and you throw it away. And I think that we are just a series of things that we do well or poorly. And I don't think that there are really gray areas when it comes to that. So we want to instill in our players the fact that when you wake up in the morning, you're going to have a series of opportunities to make a decision, and that is going to form your habits. And those habits are then going to eventually carry over into the basketball court when we're practicing, playing games, how you relate to your teammates, how you relate to your coaches. And then the real hope is, like, where this really we want it to go is this hopefully impacts you for the rest of your life. Like the goal is not to build a great human being and a great basketball player for 4 years. The goal is to build great women that then carry these habits with them for the rest of their lives, in relationships, in their jobs, in how they wake up each morning and try to live their lives with excellence.
And Courtney, this is something that has evolved through the years, I imagine. And what has been your part in the Wii Mentality?
Yeah, so we actually kind of took the concept from a grit pyramid from Angela Duckworth's book. And that's kind of where we started. And she talked about, like, if you have a big goal, really, how do you break that down and make that more of like a daily reality, right? So we have this, we call it a Wii pyramid, kind of talking about the Wii mentality. And we start at just what Coach Mo was talking about with, like, the smallest things, picking up after yourselves, saying thank you to people. How can you just be a good person every day? How can you win the moment? Again, we believe that you can either win the moment or lose the moment. We don't really think there's like a neutral there. So we're always encouraging our players to try to win all the moments that they have throughout the day with, kind of to relate that back to basketball with a big goal in mind, right? I mean, our goal every year is to win a national championship. It's to be the best basketball players that we can be on the basketball court, off the basketball court. And the culmination of that is a trophy and a championship. And we're lucky to, have that be one of our goals. But I think the biggest thing for us is, you can't just throw out, you want to win a national championship. That happens once a year. That happens in March. I mean, it's September right now. So how do you kind of break that down for your players? And we really start with the small stuff. I mean, we have over 50 things on our graphic, our pyramid for success, 50 really small things that our players can do each day to win the moment that we truly believe will lead to those bigger moments that you get as the season progresses. So it's daily habits for us, and they're very intentional. They're very focused. We rethink it every year. We check things, we cross things off, we add things, we edit, we do things that are specific to that year and that team's identity. So we're really intentional behind, starting with all the small things, which I think adds up.
And we're going to dive deeper into some of those things and share them with coaches. But, even before we get there, I mean, it's again, your program didn't start here. It got here to this point where you're obviously a powerhouse in Division III women's basketball. So prior to getting to this point, maybe Brian, was this Wii mentality there? And then did the goals adjust over time as the program got better, or did we always start with that national championship in mind?
We've always started with the national championship in mind. I think that the culture has evolved over the years in how we talk about our culture, how we talk about the win everything moments. Courtney has been instrumental in, I think, help shaping our culture, because I am such a process daily in this moment, like, don't get caught looking too far ahead. All right. And so she and I would have like battles in a good way, of where we're going back and forth. I'm like, why are we sitting here worried about the Final Four? Why are we worried about national championships? We need to win today. We need to win the first 5 minutes of practice. And she did a great job of like articulating the why, and B, like taking a stubborn old guy like me and like breaking me down into understanding that it can be both. Right. I'm just so black and white that but she's like, it can be both. And so we started to focus in on how that's the final goal. And if we don't talk about it, how can we expect to get there? Because if you don't know where you're going, like, how do you steer the boat and get going in that direction? But as we row the boat, as we're trying to provide the impetus to get us moving in the right direction, and how we're, you know, changing directions as we go and making adjustments, like, we have to have a day-to-day guide in how we're going to get to that particular spot. And I think what Courtney has been really helpful in is, I used to be very reactionary, right? So like last week wasn't great at this, so come up with a theme for the week and like, let's go. And this week's theme is this, right? She got me to think more year round, right? Like big term, long-term goals, less reactionary in the moment, to be like, okay, I understand why we want to be better at this week than we did last week, but like, we really don't need a new theme this week, coach, because like this is already in, you know, our win everything mentality pyramid. Like, if you really look at it, if we did a good job setting this up ahead of time, like, it really kind of falls under that one. And so that's where I would just say, like, I feel like we've always had good culture, but I also think every coach in America says they have good culture. But I think culture is born out in, are people leaving your program? If you have good culture, you shouldn't have 5, 6 people leaving your culture or your program. I don't care if the transfer portal's out there or not. Like, you don't have good culture if you got 5 people leaving. Number 2, I think it is born out in, like, do you win close games, right? And in years where our culture hasn't been as good, and I look back 4 years ago when we our culture wasn't bad, but our culture wasn't as great as it could be. And we kind of reset ourselves 4 years ago, the year before we went on this crazy whatever and one run that we're on right now. And we got into like the disease of me, the old Phil Jackson book. And we kind of like, we talked and we really looked at ourselves as coaches and everything. But all of that stuff kind of goes into, yeah, we want to win a national championship. It's not a failure of a year if we don't, as long as we've done all the necessary things to give ourselves the best chance to get there.
To give people a visual, so national championship, and then you go 64, 32, 16, 8, and 4. And these are the goals to get to the even bigger goal. So obviously this is the games in the tournament, right? And then undefeated in league, win regular season tournament championships, win the MIAA tournament. Those are goals to help us reach our big goals. That's just to give the top, and we'll get into some of the stats and some of the different specific things. Courtney, you mentioned tweaking this and constantly talking about this. Is player input involved?
Oh, definitely. Yep. We typically spend time at our fall retreat a couple weeks after our season starts. We takes a Saturday to just kind of hang out and do some team bonding, and we typically have like a deeper conversation surrounding that weekend, and this is a part of that. So our captains first get input on, you know, in the fall, we talked about it this summer, actually, just through conversation of, you know, are there things we really want to emphasize this year? What's the mentality we want to have going into the year? And then really do a deep dive like once our season starts and a couple weeks in before we start games. But that's where we kind of refine what's specific for this team.
And specific, is it specific for this team when you have these stats here, these stats that you'll strive for and measure throughout the season? Do those change per team and per personnel a little bit?
They do, yeah. So we actually reflect on what we've done the previous year. So I think actually, for example, the year before, so not this past season, but the year before, we shot 70% from the free throw line on the season. We wanted to up that. So we upped it to 72%, right? So we kind of take where we were at from the previous year and challenge ourselves, or kind of refine based on, you know, just the previous season and wanting to get better in certain areas. Typically, the 6 stats that we have on our pyramid kind of have stayed. Those are kind of our core beliefs, and I think you know, have been a recipe for success for us. So we might change the number, but the stat itself is not really changing year to year.
That's great. And does someone want to give us a little bit of a deep dive on those 6 things?
I'll take a couple of them, and then Courtney can fill in afterwards. one of them is 3 attempted charges or three charges taken in a game. The way that we play is very high tempo on defense, like a lot of ball pressure, take away the 3, make people put the ball on the floor. A byproduct that is going to be people that take it hard to the rim, and sort of our rotational help side defense and everything. That doesn't work if people aren't in the right spots and they're not driving people to the correct areas, but it doesn't work if you don't take charges. Now, we took fewer charges the last couple years because we had a 6'4" post player who is the greatest defensive player I have ever coached in 20 years. And so we took fewer charges, but it doesn't mean that wasn't the goal. So 3 charges. When we talk about like a points per possession piece, we break it down to defense and offense. Kyle Irvey, one of our assistant coaches, is an absolute whiz in math and like how we break things down. And we just really wanted something that we could bring to our players that wasn't emotionally driven, but it was like data driven. And we are big into data in our program. And so like the 0.5 points per possession on defense, that means that you got to play without fouling. That means that you got to turn people over. That means you got to rebound the ball at a high level. So all those kind of things go into that stat. And we've been very fortunate to lead the nation in attendance in defense the last 3 years, or be in the top 2 or 3. And I think that data has helped us. The offensive end of it is harder to put a value on in a game unless you have like some guy that is crazy good at math, like Kyle, and like he has a running total on the bench of like points per possession in his head. And so he uses that to give me feedback, give Kust feedback, give our players feedback on like, hey, we're at 0.7 points per possession right now. And then the bigger part of that is why. Our kids know why we're at that, because we talk about it every day in practice, right? We're not getting the ball to the rim enough. We're not getting paint touches enough. We need to shoot more free throws. Why did we shoot a pull-up jumper? Like we don't do that, right? So like that really helps guide our in-game. And then it also gives us a great tool to evaluate the game and come back to our players and say, this is where we reached our goals. This is where we fell short. If we fell short, why? If we reached them, why? So I'll let Courtney talk about the other 3.
Yeah, well, I would just add that the 6 stats that we chose, so they're offensive boards, possessions per quarter, charge attempts, free throw percentage, and then defensive points per possession and offensive points per possession. I think those all really reflect our philosophy behind how we want to play the game, right? Like we value an up-tempo offense. We value pushing the ball in transition. We value, being the aggressor on offense and being the aggressor on defense, right? So I think Coach Mo has built an unbelievable program, and it's just these 6 stats are what exemplify, I guess, his values and what he values for a team, and what we value as a staff for our team. So as far like offensively, we're trying to go be the aggressor and get the offensive boards. We're trying to be the aggressor and get to the free throw line. We're trying to push the ball in transition by getting the 19 possessions is both offense and defense, right? We're trying to get turnovers and turn them into points. And then we're also trying to, get the ball up the court in 4 seconds and get right into our offense. And then as far as, charge attempts, and that's being the aggressor on defense. So I think it's more of it. Those 6 stats encompass our mentality on how we coach. And so I would encourage like other coaches, like think about what you value, and then, have that be the framework for how you choose, like what you want your in-game goals to be as you move forward.
So I love that explanation, the understanding of why you choose these stats. That's great. Give us a little bit of an insight in terms of how you connect these stats to practice and then practice to game, because that's obviously one of the magical things that comes from stats.
Yeah, that's a great point, Chris. I was actually just going to bring that up because Courtney did such a good job of tying up, the why, right? I think that's coaches tune into this, like they can all see the stats, but like, why do we have those stats? So we're coaching to that. It guides every practice, right? So we're referencing points per possession on the defensive end when we're in practice. And, when we're fouling too much in practice, like we're coming back to them and saying like, okay, that's going to put them on the line. That's going to drive up their points per possession. They'd be at like a 0.73 right now. And like, that's not what we want. Or when we're having a a practice where we're not concentrating on offense, maybe taking the easy way out, we'll have a student assistant coach that will stat our scrimmages and everything. And we even stat like some of our transition drills where there's no defense, right? And we'll say, hey, we're going to try to get to like 1.2 on uncontested threes and layup drill that we do. And so all of a sudden, like, we're taking what they're hearing on the bench in games, and we're trying to apply that so that they're cognizant of that each day in practice, and that they're playing to a standard. And we're big about like standards. We don't do much with rules in our program, but like, we want to aspire to certain standards. So that really guides our practices. When someone doesn't step in and take a charge because it's just practice, right? Like, that's not okay. That you're not going to learn how to take that charge in the game if you don't learn how to take it in a practice. And oftentimes we'll catch people standing around on the perimeter, right, in games. Well, if they stand around in practice in the perimeter during practice, and we don't accentuate, you have to go get to the charge arc on an offensive rebound, then how do we expect them to do it in a game? So they understand that those things are what embodies our program. And if they do those every day in practice, it's going to then carry over to the games.
To me, that's awesome. I mean, that's modern coaching, is connecting the stats to the game. And that's what we worked on. And that's why we're working on it, and making sure that practice transfers to games. And, Courtney, I imagine, like, you being a former player and playing in this program and the different things. I mean, players are smarter nowadays because of all these analytics and these stats that we can throw at them, aren't they?
Yeah, totally. I think it's a very different game than when I played, solely because of all these stats and the resources that we have now. I mean, the game has grown so much. I don't like to date myself, but 10 years ago, we weren't quite doing this much. And I think that credit to Coach Mo. I mean, Coach Mo's led this program for 26 years, a really long time, and he's been extremely successful. But I think that one of the things that I have admired most or learned most from him is his ability to adapt and change with the times. And I think, like, we live in a world where everyone's on social media and everyone's looking at a lot more detail than they used to, and we are able to have access to a lot more information. And I think that he has used that to his advantage really well, and it's been a cool thing to watch and learn from.
Well, and Brian, for us that have coached at lower levels of college like this, I know you make your program the big time, but this is almost like adding another assistant coach, isn't it? The stats, and if you're using them properly, you're adding resources that just are invaluable for a program, aren't they?
They are. And I give credit to, again, I think the one area I'll take credit is I recognize talent. And when I say I recognize talent, I mean I recognize like good people. And to have younger assistants, and even our sports science division of our athletic program, to be able, like, we monitor heart rate every day in practice. Like, we know their workload every single day. This data, it's so critical, because that's how young people learn now. I think so many of my decisions 15 years ago, 17 years ago, were emotionally driven. Like, you're not working hard enough. Like, that's a bad shot. And like, they came as like emotional bursts at our kids, instead of being able to say, hey, we've talked about this. Like, why? Like, you're not one of our 3 kids that's taking pull-up jumpers from 15. Like, that's not your job. Or like, we can reference a kid's like work rate in practice based on the data of the heart rate monitors and things like that we have on them. And we're like, instead of saying you're lazy, you're not working hard, we can come at them and say, hey, how are you doing today? Like, it doesn't look like your work rate is where you typically are. Well, I just found out that my grandma's really sick, and I didn't sleep much last night because I'm worried about her. She's got cancer. I'm not quite sure where that's going. Like, okay. So instead of me having an emotional outburst and yelling and screaming and saying, you're not working hard enough, it gives me pause to sit back and say, there's a lot of stuff going on in these young people's lives. Like, give them grace, ask good questions. And then if they're just not working, we can have it out. But like, I think it allows you to assume the good in your people.
Well, it adds evidence to your instincts, right?
Right.
And that's always a good thing. And just connecting that for you, some of your daily habits that you have on your daily habits at the bottom of your pyramid: take care of your body, sleep, eat, hydrate to be great. Those things directly linked to what you're talking about in terms of heart rate monitor and knowing if they're at their optimal level or not. And I'm curious, then you connect those things with some data and some evidence, and then just give us an example. If somebody is potentially in that overtrained zone or not optimal level, what are you doing with them?
Yeah, the great thing about that is I have an amazing, he's our head athletic trainer at our school, and he's our athletic trainer for women's basketball, but he also oversights basically all of the health umbrella over our team. So that's mental health, that's counseling, that's physical health, that's strength and conditioning, where he's working with our strength and conditioning coach. Actually, Tim is the one that will come to me and say, hey, I think we need to back this kid off, and we might be getting ready to get into like a high transition period, maybe a sprints, although we don't do a lot of like sprinting for conditioning. But like he's like, hey, I'm going to back this kid off today in practice, and when you go to this high training zone, like we're going to put them on the bike. And so it's less impact, less hip, knee, ankle stuff. Maybe their legs just need a refresher because it just like they're trending down. The other thing is we gather information before and after practice from our players. Like, how do you feel coming into practice today? What is holding you back? What is propelling you forward? After practice, like we give them a questionnaire on like, how did you think practice was? Did you perceive it as incredibly hard, not too bad, pretty easy? So like we start to see if their perceptions match up with what we design as a practice. We start to take all that stuff and we put it together, and then through a group effort. And again, this is where I think I've been able to grow. Like I got a lot of stuff on my mind, right? And by having people around me that are tapping me on the shoulder, it makes me a better coach, because they're like, hey, I want to hold her out right now. And I'm like, what? No, we're doing like, coach, she was overloaded yesterday. Her heart rate's here. She's coming in with this stuff before practice. Like, great. Okay, I got it. Like emotional me, like coach me, doesn't want anybody to sit up. But when I've got good people around me, we can back people up or we can ramp people up.
Well, that integration is awesome. It's so good that you're doing that. And a quick aside, my wife played college basketball, and sometimes when I share ideas with her, like I hear from her, oh, that would have been so helpful for me, or that wouldn't have been as helpful for me. So to have a resource like Courtney to throw this stuff off of and say, hey, that would have been awesome for me, that helps connect the dots even more, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Courtney, let's give us an idea then. So we go to the values of the program now, and let's start with the first value: we celebrate. I love this one.
That one is my favorite as well. I think that there's a lot of times we talk to our players a lot about how they talk to themselves, right? Positive self-talk. And I think that as women and also as college athletes, like they're pretty quick to go negative. I think we have a lot of perfectionists on our team, and they hold themselves to a high standard, right? So we just want to keep celebration in the forefront of our mind. We talk about finding joy in the game and finding joy in the little things. Honestly, if you walk into a Hope College practice, we expect it to be loud. We expect it to be fun. We expect it to be one where people are just celebrating each other. If you're able to, if say you just missed a wide open layup and you're mad at yourself, but then someone on your team goes and gets a steal and gets the ball back for you, like, it helps you get outside yourself when you're able to celebrate them. So you stop thinking about missing that layup and you start thinking about celebrating your teammate. And I think that's very visible in our practices, but I also think it's very visible on our bench. Our bench energy is a lot of fun. And I think that's kind of a trend kind of in college basketball right now, is to do all the bench celebrations. But we pride ourselves in that. And then I think we take it a step further by saying, your goal as a teammate is to be each other's biggest fans, right? Like, yes, there's some competition in playing time. Yes, there's some people want to take each other's. We're a competitive program, but at the same time, like when someone's on the court and they do something well, like you are expected to celebrate them and find joy in building them up. So it's been really fun to develop and kind of embrace. I think that's always been a part of basketball, is to celebrate and cheer each other on. But when you're really intentional about embracing it, it brings you to the next level.
Okay, you just described my 11-year-old daughter perfectly. Perfectionist, things she says to herself. So I want to get your advice. And one thing I said to her is just literally, we've come to the point that I say, don't say the first thing that comes to your mind. Because the first thing that comes to her mind is often putting herself down in a way when I go, man, I wish I was this good at your age or this smart or this, whatever. So what's some advice for dealing with those type of people?
Yeah, we have quite a few of those people on our team. And again, I think that's just unfortunately for women, and also the age range of 18 to 21, I think it's a really formative time of your life. And 11-year-olds, apparently.
Apparently. They mature faster nowadays, right?
Yeah, totally. We talk to our players a lot about not listening to yourself, but talking to yourself. They each have a card in their locker, so it's something visible they see every day. I'm huge into visible cues, things that just kind of trigger your memory. So we have a card in their locker that has 3 affirmations and 3 things that they have written themselves that they're proud of. And it could be like, I've put in the work to be great, or I can do hard things, right? Simple things, like simple sentences that they can refer back to. So when maybe we call it their good brain versus their bad brain. So when they get their bad brain, they have that visual. They've already looked at it that day. They've already checked in before practice and read those things because it's right there in front of them. So hopefully it's in the forefront of their mind of, I'm not going to let my bad brain win. I'm going to let my good brain win, and I'm going to talk to myself instead of listen to myself. And, there's a variety of things we do to kind of highlight that. But again, for us, it's more in the daily habits. It's more in talking about it every single day. I mean, I think Coach Mo does a great job of just like letting that be a staple of every day of how do you start your day? How do you, when you wake up in the morning to when you go to bed at night, like, are you letting your thoughts drive you, or are you driving your thoughts? So we talk about it a lot. And I think, it's been cool to see our girls kind of translate that onto the basketball court, but also in other areas of their life.
Yeah, that's a super practical advice. Thank you. Brian, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think you get what you emphasize. And the longer I've done this, the longer I realize that you can't emphasize everything. But you've got to be able to pick out like what is most important to you. Like you did an interview with the Kentucky coach, right?
RLZ. Yeah.
She's unbelievable. I mean, I was blown away by that podcast. And like she talked about Lynn Dunn saying 3 things you want to be excellent at, 3 things you want to be great at, 3 things you want to be good at. Like you've got to pick those things out because you don't get 9 excellence. Right. So like a big part for us is like the mental piece, right? Because if that's not going well, then how do you expect the physical piece to follow? Because the brain is way bigger than your body, and that will give in, and that will allow you to give in way quicker than what muscle fatigue will happen and everything else. So like I think that for us it's just like being really intentional about how you spend your time. Like 5 minutes before practice every day we spend on culture, 5 to 7 minutes. Like most people are like, I don't got time to do that, I got to put in a baseline out of bounds play. I'm like, but if they can't process under pressure, that baseline out of bounds play isn't any good. And so how they talk to themselves, all that stuff matters. I'm just a really, really, really big proponent on like the mental side of basketball. I think it comes through in where I put my time, how I spend conversations in my office with people, what we talk about. We talk about their jump shots sometimes. Absolutely. We talk about their mental way they look at the game, way they view the game, way they process the game, a lot more than that.
Great stuff. And the second value you have on your sheet is we appreciate.
Yeah, I'm really big into all of these, but like I love that we appreciate. We have so much to be grateful for. I mean, you look behind me on my screensaver here, and like you see a full DeVos Fieldhouse. We play in one of the nicest arenas in the United States, D1 through 3, and it's even better because we lead the nation in attendance every single year. We have a lot to appreciate, but we live in a culture that is so driven by likes on our Instagram, how many people viewed my TikTok, that kind of stuff, that I think it causes us to lose sight of all of the great things that we have day to day. And I'm not going to be that guy that says social media is the bane of this generation's existence. I think social media is great. Like I don't post anything on TikTok, but man, I love me some TikTok. And I get I love to cook.
You love some basketball immersion Twitter too, Coach.
Absolutely. And I follow you guys, but like like I get half my cooking ideas off TikTok. So like you can either use it for good or you can use it for bad. But getting back to we appreciate, like we have so many things that we can appreciate. But again, I think sometimes our bad brain like triggers, you know, the stuff that isn't really reflective of our whole day. I saw a great tweet. I don't know who put this out there, but they said, "Are you having a bad 15 minutes? Did you have a bad 15 minutes or did you have a bad day?" Right. And I think so often, like our bad brain goes to that bad 15 minutes, maybe that bad interaction with a professor, maybe that bad moment in practice or whatever, instead of saying, there were hundreds of great moments today. So where do you go and what do you choose to reflect on and focus on? And I just think that's important. You know, I've been extremely blessed to be at Hope, to be surrounded by great people, to have great players here. But I also think it goes beyond just me. You know, I think we want to teach our players to be appreciative of like, all right, when your mom is on the phone with you, like, and you're like, my class is hard. This is hard. This is hard. How do you end that? Like, how do you end that in appreciation? But I'm so grateful that I'm at Hope, right? But I love this place because if it's all bad, you might want to find something else to do, right? A lot of what we do with our players is like if they have those negative thoughts, if they have a complaint, we insist that they end with, but I got this, right? So like you can say it, right? You can have a complaint, you can do whatever, like, oh my gosh, I got 2 exams tomorrow. I don't know how I'm going to get everything done. I got to get a paper done by 6 p.m. tomorrow. And that's like negative. Part of the appreciate thing is like, but I got this because you know what? You've had it ever since you've been at Hope. You're just going through a tough time, but appreciate the opportunity, appreciate the tough, appreciate the hard.
I love that. I love that phrasing. That's part of the beauty of this podcast is hearing things like that. And, you know, it strikes me as like when someone says, I can't, always following it up with yet, right? It's okay to say I can't do something, but always add the yet because you can do it. And that type of thing. That's brilliant. So we show up is the third one. Not that these are in order, but that's the third one.
Yeah. Courtney, you got that one.
Yeah, this was a newer concept. So this past year's team, this was our first time having this word kind of brought up, and we loved it. And I think we really embrace it, and we continue to embrace it to this day. I mean, show up can mean a million things. For us, it's showing up every day to practice. It's showing up and working harder on your own personal game, getting individual workouts in. It's showing up and just putting in the time. It's showing up and being fully present where you are. Like that's a big one for us. Is one of my favorite phrases is just be where your feet are. Like be present, show up, and you be there. Don't like check your baggage at the door. If you're bringing stuff, like let practice be your 2 hours of just showing up for your teammates and showing up to get better and not be worrying about all the outside distractions. So, and then we also use it for, you know, like show up for your teammate. What are you doing to build into them today? What are you doing to encourage someone? And ultimately, I mean, show up for yourself. Like, what are you doing to get better today? Give 100% of yourself in the moment. And then when you're on to the next moment, give 100% of yourself to that moment. But really, it's just more of a mentality of showing up, putting in the work. Like we want to be a team that's in the gym. We want to be a team that's striving to get better every day. We want to be a team that's in the weight room, all those things, like practical things, but then also, you know, show up for your teammates, show up for being present and show up for yourself and give 100% of what you have.
Awesome. And then the last one, we believe, and I particularly like some of the phrasing that you've added to this, that we believe that we are all enough. What a powerful statement that is. So we believe.
Yeah, we believe. And I'm going to ask Courtney to fill in behind me a little bit here. But again, I think this goes back to like the mental piece of the and the bad brain. But like, I think so often, and again, it's going to sound like I'm bashing Instagram, I'm bashing all the social media things, but so often, like we are in a comparison society and we get this feeling that we're not enough. Like we don't look the right way. We don't lift enough weights. We don't make enough shots. We don't have the right clothes. We don't hang with the right people. And we believe that we are enough because you're amazing. Like you have to believe that you are amazing, and you have to believe in yourself. You have to believe in others, and you have to know that people believe in you. One of the things that we really started to reference going down the stretch last year was unconditional love. Okay. Unconditional love. With success comes, actually, people, I don't think they quite understand this, but like there's a lot more pressure with success than I think there was when I was just getting started as a coach and I'm just fighting and clawing for every win. Right. The losses are torturous. The wins are like, okay, got it. Like, move on, but we got to get a lot better at this. That's one of the reasons that we talk about we celebrate. Right. But the we believe part comes in where last year we talked a lot about unconditional love and the we believe and the things as we circle up in everything that we do. If you look at any picture of our team, huddles, I might be talking to the team, but like we are huddled up in a circle. Before games, we're huddled up in a circle. That means nobody's more important than anybody else, right? My manager is no more important than me than I am of our manager. Our best player is no more important than our worst player. All that kind of stuff. So like all of that stuff goes together. But the we believe part comes into, we talked about our circle, right, being our protection zone. Nothing could penetrate our circle. When we're hands over shoulders, huddled up, we're all together, like all that bad stuff can't get in. And we talked about who's in your circle, right? Who's in your circle, and you have to believe in the people that you're circled up with, not believe the noise that's outside the circle. Okay. And so we talked about we're huddled up, center of the court. I can still remember this. And I said, everybody says that we have to win. Everybody says that we have to do this. I said, everybody's already got their hotels booked to Pittsburgh, and this is like in February. And I said, you have to understand that if you miss a shot, that the people that matter are in this circle, right? You have to believe that the people that matter are in this circle. You have to believe that your parents and your grandparents have this unconditional love for you, that no matter how much you succeed today, no matter how much you fail, like they will love you no matter what. Your coaches, if you miss shots, if you mess up, will love you unconditionally. You have earned that trust that they believe in you. And so all of that stuff, I think, really played a big role in the we believe in like propelling us to wins and eventually a national championship. I'm going to let Courtney kind of talk about the stuff that we kind of did with like the card from Jen Fell and some other people are just like, this caught on, like our whole fan base like was into the we believe, like going down the last month, 5 weeks of the season. And Courtney can kind of talk to that.
Yeah, we decided, I think it was end of February, probably, as we were kind of heading into our conference tournament and in the national tournament, hopefully. We decided we needed a little edge, I guess. So we tried to take, again, we weren't making something up. We weren't like, this was in our framework. We believe has been written in our framework since October. Come end of February, we really decided to focus in on something. So we asked a number of people around campus or alumni or, different influential people to come speak to our program. I think all of our coaches took a day and we all spoke about like what we believe in that team and why we believe it. And, and then we had people across campus coming to us and using scripture or using quotes or using just different motivation that they've had to kind of instill this sense of we believe. And then the other thing that we did is if you take like a fingers crossed motion with your hands, right? So we would take the two fingers that are part of the fingers crossed, and one of them stood for friends, right? We want to be friends on our team, right? That we want to celebrate each other, we want to love each other, and then we want to be teammates. So we want to hold each other accountable, and then we cross those fingers, so they're intertwined, right? So you can be friends and teammates, and that symbol had a lot of meaning to our team. We kind of brought that to be like hey, when you give that symbol to someone, it means that you believe in them, that you are their friend, you are their teammate, you got their back, you're supporting them. So we kind of embraced that mentality. I mean, we've used that kind of symbol with our hands, that fingers crossed symbol, for a number of things throughout the year, and we kind of honed it in for that last 6 weeks of our season. And I think one cool moment, from the Final Four, I think it was, is we were up 15, I think, in the second half of the Final Four game, and the team came crawling back, and all of a sudden we have ourselves a game, and someone calls a timeout. I don't even really remember. And the coaches are talking, right? So we're talking before we go into the huddle. And one of our assistant coaches noticed that our captain just she didn't say any words. She just said, "Hey guys, look at me." And she gave them like the fingers crossed symbol. And to all of them, it meant like, "I believe in you. I believe in this team. I got your back. Like we have each other's back." And I think that's pretty cool when the framework really works and you see it in action. And like honestly, like I was like in tears after hearing that story, because it's just so moving to me that, one of our captains, she's an incredible leader, and people took what she said and just said, "Okay, let's take a deep breath. We believe in each other. Let's go win this come. Let's be poised and come out of this timeout stronger." So that's a really cool moment, I think, for us, is for how this all kind of works, right? Like people have to buy into it. People have to like live it out. And I think that we were able to do that this year, and credit to our players, but also credit to Coach Mo for doing it every day. Like we go back to the beginning, like it's a daily thing, and it's cool when it culminates to big moments like that.
Well, it's so powerful. And it does strike me listening to both of you how, some people might consider this a culture conversation, but the reality is you've taken it beyond words and you've added meaning to them and action to the words. And that to me is the most important part of all these culture conversations is, are those words being applied in action? And that's what strikes me in listening to both of you. And that's just amazing to be able to hear that and these stories that go with it. And I guess I have to say I'm fired up Dutch right now, right? That's the idea. So the bottom of the pyramid, just to connect this for people, there's about, is it 40 plus words? These are intentional daily habits that you hold each other to. Is that basically it?
Yep.
I wanted to get your thoughts and maybe some of your advice, Coach Mo, on some of them, but one of them particularly is this concept of accepting criticism. And you've coached in many generations and you've had success in many generations. So I'm curious, in this generation, do you find you have to explain what coaching is to players to be able to get them to understand the value of what you're trying to do for them beyond just criticism? It's not criticism, it's actually help.
Oh, I think the famous line from coaches is like, if I'm not coaching you, then you should be really worried, right? Like that's common. I think it's harder for them to understand that in the moment. For me, all of that criticism, their ability to accept it and everything, it goes back to not what happens on the floor. It goes back to where I think the real magic happens, which is in the coach's office. If they know that you love them, they will accept any criticism that you give them. But if they know that you love them unconditionally, you love them no matter what, they will take any criticism that you give them in the moment. But if you don't articulate that frequently to them and tell them all the great things that they're doing, tell them the things that you want them to aspire to do, things that you think that they can improve on, that you're going to hold them accountable to in practice, and like catch them doing something good. Like I have really, really improved at that over the last 6 or 7 years. Is it can't all be corrective. It has to be catching them. Even it could be the littlest thing, right? Just to be able to say something positive, which then allows you to come back with coaching / criticism and have them accept that. I think it comes back to like this thing too. This is a big failure recovery thing. Kid throws the ball out of bounds in practice, and like they look around and their teammates are doing this, and they're like, "Hey, make a better play next time. You got it, right?" It's the same thing. Like when I light a kid up at practice, which is never fun for anybody, their teammates then come to them and they're like, "Hey, he's doing that because he loves you. Like he wants you to get better. Accept it, move on. Accept it, move on." And I think it's harder for younger players because they haven't been in our program. They haven't felt that love for as long as like a junior or senior. When I get after them, no one likes it, but like they have had more years of buildup of love and encouragement from myself and our staff, so like they can accept the criticism, move on. I call it like you're either a Teflon player or a Velcro player. Like when I criticize you, like if you're a Velcro player and I criticize you and that sticks with you. I mean, I once had a freshman at the end of the year tell me that I criticized her in November and like she was still trying to get over it. Well, that's a Velcro player, right? It stuck to that person. And I didn't do a very good job, apparently, of unpacking that. What we want is like that kid that we give them the coaching, they hear it, it hits them, they heard it, they're going to do something about it, and then they move on, but they don't carry the negative with it. They carry, I'm going to be better at this. And there's a difference.
I love that. Great stuff in terms of connecting that. And, the other one that really shows up for me is how many times you say, be grateful. And, that's something wherever I go in the world, my final speech to kids is always about gratitude and how gratitude can always bring you back to a place of positivity. And Absolutely. I think, Brian, especially that connects back to what you said before, which is this concept of, did you have a bad moment or a bad day? And sometimes we define our day by that bad moment. But anytime you come back to gratitude, you come back to a happy place. So talk to me about gratitude and the importance of that in your program.
First of all, I don't know that I've always been the world's greatest at gratitude. I think people just assume that when you win a lot, that everything's good, right? But I also think it can make you somewhat jaded in that if it's all about winning, and like that's the end thing every single day, and the games are what matters, I think that you just get things completely out of whack. And I mean, I think that we're at a point in the United States where like it's okay to talk about things on a public manner. Like I just had some horrible mental health as pertained to getting things out of whack in my life, not having gratitude for the daily efforts of people that were around me, like winning being the only thing. And I started going counseling, and it changed my world as far as like being a more grateful person, understanding like the bigger moments are a series of the smaller moments, that perfectionism is not the goal, improvement is the goal. And to like give some grace to myself. Like I was like the hardest I was hard on my coaches and I was hard on my players at times, but like never any harder than I was on myself. And it was just stealing the joy, which is why to me, this whole we pyramid is very personal. Like we celebrate. Yep. You know why I got that we celebrate on there? Where I learned it the most was a special needs kid that helps out with our team. And he comes into our locker room after every game. It doesn't matter if we beat the worst team on our schedule or the best team on our schedule. It doesn't matter if we play good or bad. He is in there and like in the middle of the circle of our team, spraying a water bottle, like, like we're the best team in the nation. And I'm walking in there going, we should have beat them by 35. And we only beat them by 21. And I'm like, what are you doing? Right. So like gratitude is like, have some gratitude for all your health is good. Your family is good. Your team is great. You have the best coaching staff in the United States. Like, who has it better than I do? Like, I feel so grateful for that. And I just had to really connect back with reality and get more rational thoughts going through my head instead of the irrational.
This has been so powerful. So many things have come to light from you guys sharing the game with us. And so I'm curious. So we've talked about this Wii mentality, this culture piece, all these different words, all these different phrases. Can you give us some examples of maybe how this has impacted certain players within your program?
Yeah, thanks for asking about that, Chris. I'll give a couple examples. I think being a freshman is super hard. Super hard. And I think it's hard to catch on to like the we mentality because you got so many things up in the air, and I love this kid so much. So I don't mind using her name. Casey DeSmit was just graduated. She are our starting point guard on the national championship team. She's actually the person that brought the fingers crossed idea to our team. And like just an incredible leader. She's now a high school basketball coach, and she's going to do great things in the world. But when she was a freshman, she was on the struggle bus, and she was unable to connect, in my opinion, to the we mentality. She was incredibly hard on herself. She didn't celebrate herself well at all. She talked incredibly poorly to herself, didn't accept criticism very well because she wanted so badly to be perfect that any small slight like would just crush her soul. Wasn't like the greatest at interacting with her teammates. And she would agree with this. If she's on this podcast right now, like she is agreeing with me. But like you get through that freshman year and you're like, is Casey ever going to figure this out? Like, I mean, here she is like this, she's a really good basketball player, but like, is she going to figure this out? So, you give them talking points, you give them things that you want to get better at. that summer. Like you send them home and, people talk about jump shots and they talk about ball handling and stuff like that. Like we want her to get better at that. We want her to get stronger. We want her to certainly have better sleep habits, which were horrible, and nutritional. But then this was a big one that we sent her home with, was like the whole pyramid and like being a better teammate, being better to herself. And that sophomore year, it was like she was a different person. Not perfect, but a different person. And then she takes that to her junior year and it's even better. And then she takes that to her senior year and she gets elected as a captain. If you would ask anyone around her when she was a freshman if she was going to be a captain, no way, no chance, right? Instead, like she goes to work on herself. Only you can do this for yourself, right? And we give them the structure, the framework through our Win Everything. We're investing in them as coaches, but like at some point you have to work on yourself. And she did that. She did that. Okay. Back up like 12 months ago. We have a precocious freshman in our program. And she's like Casey 2.0. And some of our upperclassmen are like, oh my gosh, can you believe that she said that? Oh my goodness. Did you see her body language? And I'm like, hey, Case, what do you think? She goes, that's little Case right there. I'm like, yeah. And so like Casey lives into her to a certain point, but not just Casey. Casey's like, a little bit of it. But then we have other people that are just diving in with this young lady. And much like Casey, like the year was hard. She had success, but like we sent her home with homework to do for the summer. And this Win Everything mindset and being more responsible for your body language and everything was a big part of like what we sent her home for.
What type of work was that, Coach?
Body language, how to respond to failure, how to respond.
Readings? Is it videos? Is it watching themselves?
Well, so she knew. Yeah. She just couldn't stop it. Mm-hmm. And so it wasn't so much a matter of like giving her things to read as to having her like, okay, when you're doing an individual skill workout and you miss 4 threes in a row, like, are you going to throw your hands up and go, what the hell, the gun isn't working right, or it's not feeding me the ball fast enough, or, my skill development leader is like not a very good passer. I just can't do anything right. Or are you going to be like, okay, wait, catch yourself in the moment and like practice recovering from failure.
So bringing it consciously aware.
Yes, consciously aware. Yeah. Fast forward to like July, and she comes and works at my team camp and an individual camp. And all of a sudden, like my seniors and everything are looking around, they're looking at her and they're like, what's up with Bellows? And I'm like, oh gosh, what happened? And they're like, no, like she's starting to get it. And like you come and now we start school this fall. And like we're looking around for young leaders and everything, and who's going to help lead our freshmen. And there is Olivia Bellows, front and center, getting it done. And our upperclassmen are just singing her praises to me behind the closed doors, but also like right to her face. Belly, you're amazing. Like, thanks for taking what we said last year seriously. So I just think that our culture works and the pyramid works, but we also, as coaches, have to give grace to our younger players because you don't know what background they're coming from. Everybody brings different stuff into the program and everybody evolves at a different rate. And it's never fast enough, but you got to be okay with giving it time.
Courtney, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that the daily reps and the doing it over and over and over again is just something that we're really proud of, honestly. And I think that it's something that we've seen throughout time to really work. And again, none of this works if you don't have people that want to embrace it and people that live it out. So yeah, I mean, I think we totally start we actually tend to start with our players at like the bottom of the pyramid. So those 40, 50 words that are super small. We don't start at the national champion. We don't start at the top. We start at the bottom. And I think it kind of sets the framework for how we live our lives and how we hope that our players, continue to live even beyond basketball, right? So they're with us for 4 years, and our goal is to just keep building on the foundation that they've already brought in. And then, hopefully by the time they graduate, yeah, maybe they've won a lot of basketball games. Maybe they've, cut down some nets. That's obviously a goal, but the bigger goal is. And the thing I think that Coach Mo is really, really great at, and some is the relationship piece, and is the, are you a strong, confident, independent woman who's ready to go take on whatever comes next? Like, that's what's important to us. And that's what I think is kind of summed up in the Wii Mentality pyramid. And yeah, we have the national championship at the top, but it's probably also, go live a great life, right? Go do something great, and you're hopefully prepared, one step closer to being prepared after being a Hope women's basketball player.
It's just so amazing what you've shared, such powerful stuff. And thank you for sharing the game with us.
Thanks for the opportunity, Chris. And I'll go back to the question that you asked me at the start, and you asked Courtney. There's a reason that we're both on here. And I really felt strongly about having Courtney join us. She's humble. She'll never say this, but she's been pursued by a lot of other schools to be a head coach. And I am super grateful and honored to coach alongside her. I think anybody that listens to this can just hear her incredible abilities to connect people. And I know that we're talking about culture, but she's an incredible on-court coach. She's an incredible X's and O's coach. And if she'll wait, and if she'll let me finish out my career, I would look forward to her being the next coach here. And it would be an incredible honor for me to hand over the program to somebody that's as talented as she is. So thanks for allowing us to both be on. I know that probably isn't your typical format, but I think you can see how much value added it was to have someone as smart as Courtney on with me.
Absolutely. And as you know, probably from listening to me, I am not into typical. So atypical always works for me as well. So Courtney, thank you so much. And Brian, thank you so much.
Appreciate the opportunity, Chris.